Welcome back to another exciting episode of Beyond the Mortgage. Today, I am thrilled to have a very special guest with me today. She's a 25-year veteran in the mortgage industry, an author, a TEDx speaker, an award-winning entrepreneur and expert in so many things. And she's the creator of Magical Unicorn Project, promoting unity, equality, and empowerment. She's none other than Kyra Wong and a very, very special friend of mine. Kyra, thank you so much for taking the time today and sharing your knowledge and expertise with all our listeners.
My pleasure, Tracy. Thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
I mean, the intro doesn't even do justice for all the things that you have done in your career and also personally, but I really want to dive into what the show was about. And it's about relationship with money and your journey with money. So let's talk about that relationship, how it's defined for you personally and in your impressive career.
Wow. Okay. What I would say is from a very young age, I was a child who sort of felt like I was born into the wrong family. And was planning my escape. So I just remember being 6 years old and I had this idea. I was going to move to New York City. And so I literally got a paper route. I started saving and I really didn't spend money. I was just an avid saver. And then when I got to high school, I worked full time and I went to school. So I would literally go to school from 8:30 to 2:30, take the bus up to where I was working and work from 3 to midnight. So I always had this very, very strong work ethic and this desire to save money and, fly away and make my life better. So that's basically how it all started. My journey started. And then of course I moved to Vancouver when I was 18 with this like nice stack of cash. I had got really good at saving, but sort of came from a place of, necessity and wanting to have my own freedom and live my own life on my own terms.
That's incredible. And so just kind of going on with that story, we talk about, most people when I talk to, everyone has a journey on struggle with money and how it's been able to change them. And, in a lot of ways, sometimes it's more lessons they have to learn to be able to get to a point where money becomes a priority of understanding how to be able to save and what people need to do to know that they're worthy of that. Maybe talk
Yeah.
specifically about your struggle, if you'd like to share on your financial journey and how or when was that pivot for you to make that change?
So I very much have this orphan mentality. So when you feel like an orphan, it's like walking on a tightrope, and if you fall down, there's no one there to catch you. I always felt like that. So I would walk on that tightrope very, very carefully and make my decisions very carefully. But I wasn't, in a position to make all the decisions perfectly. So in the beginning, I felt like I needed to, be with someone who was financially stable to help me be financially stable. But I learned that it's really important to make your own money so you can have your own power. Really, I mean, financial independence as a woman is so critical. I don't have
Sure.
daughters, but if I did, I'd be like, hey man, like no matter who you marry, you always have to make your own money and have your own financial independence. I think that's critical in terms of having, an empowered and powerful life and a free life. So it wasn't until I had made relationship mistakes, married wrong people, had my first child, and then left his dad when he was 6 months old. I had to really go out there and find my wings and make it on my own, kind of like for the first time without having anyone else, to support me. That was probably the most scary time of my entire life. But again, because I had this child, I felt like, okay, like I'm going to go out there and make it or I'm going to die trying. Right.
Yeah.
And coming out of my second relationship, there was financial issues there, which made me think, yeah, you know what? I need to be independent and make it on my own. And whoever I'm going to be with in the future, I'll come together with that person, but I'm always going to be, have my own thing and have my own power and, not have anybody be able to sort of like take me down.
Right. And it's, I always say you kind of have to push through the pain, right? And the struggle
Yeah.
to see, a better version of yourself, knowing that you're so resilient to be able to do that. So, it's incredible the journey you've had. And there's so many listeners that, over the years, being on the mortgage side and being able to speak to so many individuals and families, the topic of money and
Hmm.
money management seems to be one of such judgment. And, what's defined in a bank account, a lot of people think their worth is defined on that. But there is a lot of security in having wealth so that you can support, to your point, like you had your son, and for other people, it's their children or their family, but most importantly, themselves. I agree on
Hmm.
that. So let's talk about, if we've got a listener right now that's struggling with money, which many people do, what would be the one thing, or maybe there's a few things that you feel that you would like to share and make recommendations for them to make some changes?
Hmm. So, first of all, don't ever define yourself by
Mm.
money. Money is important for survival, but we all come into this world ignorant, scared, and naked, and we all leave that
Exactly.
way. So, don't let money define you. And if people define you that way, I mean, culturally, it's set up, right? Like, that's the most important thing, but it really isn't. I mean, once you have your basic needs met, and they've done studies around this, like, once people's needs are pretty much met, having an extra $5 million doesn't make you 5 million times more happy. It doesn't work like that.
No, exactly.
So I mean, you want to make enough so that you're comfortable, that you can, feel free to do the things you want, have the things you want. But even buying things doesn't bring you happiness either. So keep it in perspective, right? I'm kind of getting to this place where I really, admire minimalists, because that's
Yes.
a way more powerful way to live in this kind like consumer oriented culture we're in.
What would be a recommendation that you would give someone that's struggling with money right now? What would you tell them to do?
Okay. So, and just so you know, when I kind of went out on my own with my son, it's not like I believed in myself or had a bunch of money or anything. Like, I was literally starting from ground zero.
Mhm.
One thing, and I mean, I know a lot of people talk about this, and it really does make a difference, is investing in yourself.
Mhm.
I started, it wasn't something I had done before. I didn't want to spend the money on those sorts of things. But truly, when you start investing in yourself, when you start surrounding yourself with good mentors, and it doesn't even have to be someone you necessarily know, you can, like, dial into Tony Robbins or Darren Hardy, or there's lots of free resources where you can get, information and education and knowledge and wisdom and empowerment from these, free resources. And then I would start to like buy courses and do different things, and you don't necessarily realize how
Mhm.
much it's changing you. But if you're consistent and keep, like, every year be like, okay, what am I going to do, how am I going to invest in myself, and I would pick something, and it doesn't have to be, a super expensive thing, but just pick something and invest in yourself every year, and that will literally start to take you to the next level. It really does.
And to your point, a lot of people think that they have to spend money on self development, but we know there's so much on social media now that's free. There's a lot of courses, there's people that you can listen to that are money experts that have gone the journey of struggle to success, and now are coaches out there and are giving their information out for free, their knowledge, just even starting with understanding a budget. I tell people
Yep.
all the time, taking the time. It's not a fluffy subject. No, it's not exciting, but it's so essential to the foundation of you living every day within your means so that you have a better life down the road, and a better life, to your point. Like, I, minimalist is such, it's such a word that people use all the time nowadays. It's like that cliche word, but it truly, I'm seeing a lot of people looking at what they have, all their material things, and realizing it's not making them happy, getting rid of it, living really simple, but living extravagant in their heart and in their
Yeah.
mind, because they're at peace with where they're at, and being able to be financially secure to say when is your enough with what you're doing every day, so that maybe you could pursue a passion that you have, or find a better balance of not working as many hours in a day and doing just more of what you love to do, which may have been a hobby. You've seen the shift in that over COVID too, right? Like even afterwards, we've seen a big shift of people putting that more in perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of caught up, a lot of us, in this hustle and grind culture and celebrated for that. But when you take a step back, and even, I mean, at this stage in my life, I thought, go out there, go make the millions of dollars and climb the corporate ladder and, buy the pink Porsche and win the awards and all that stuff, which is like, ta. But, and Jim Carrey famously said, like, I wish everybody would get rich and famous so they'll, realize that this is not the answer, right? And
Yes.
so I think for people who have, achieved big things, and a lot of the time too, people out there who are pursuing that,
Mhm.
do it because they actually don't feel good enough inside. Like, you know what I mean? I was very much guilty of that too, right? Or trying to prove, that I was good enough because, I had this orphan mentality. But, I really overcame that and got to this place where, no, it's not going to make you happy at the end of the day. Like, what's really going to make you happy is having inner peace, right? So, um, and in terms of personal growth, last year, instead of, buying another, financial thing, or, investing in another way to climb to the next level, I just really, doubled down on a personal sort of healing journey, because I felt like at that moment in time, really getting centered and good with myself internally would probably help take me to where I want to go next, right? And to your point, Tracy, right, getting more like heart centered. What's really going to make me happy and bring inner peace? Because at the end of the day, that's really what people want. They want to be happy. They want to be peaceful. The next Louis Vuitton handbag is not going to make you happy. Not for long. I can tell you, it's not going to be that.
No, and it's so true. I always say you have to fix what's in here first, the
Yeah.
heart, which is the hardest thing to do, and I think it can take people a lifetime. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm in my 50s now, and I'm still working on that, but I'm such a better version of where I was from my 40s, from my 30s, from my 20s.
Yeah.
I love who I am, and I love where I'm at. And to
Yeah.
your point, I think that life puts you in situations so that you can learn from that, right? And you
Yeah.
can grow.
Absolutely.
And anybody, any expert, any money expert, you can listen to as many stories as you want, and that I showcase on this podcast about people going through adversity and then getting to the better side of this financially. But until you fix yourself,
Yeah.
right? Internally, until you fix that,
Hmm.
you're never going to make headway. Like, you're going to find a roadblock. You could learn a budget, but something else is going to stop you. So to your point, I love what you said about, working this year instead of, like, again, having another mentor or doing something financially. You worked on a path of healing for you. And I think
Yeah.
that's a huge message today, is that to be successful with money, work on healing for you. So I want to talk about ways that you give back and what you've done. I know what you've done in our industry and how you've given back, but I'd like you to share with the listeners how you've given back because of all the success that you've had, in success, like you said, in terms of personal development, and success what you have had on a business side as well. How have you given back?
Well, I mean, I think in 2017, that was an eye opening year for me. I had been promoted to district vice president. And as I was climbing that corporate ladder, I realized, hey, there's really not a lot of women up here. We should, have more women up here, have more women have a voice at the table. So I started the project, the Magical Unicorn Project, in 2017, really just to talk more about equality and, the fact that we're all one, uh, kind of embracing humanity from that oneness perspective. And I worked kind of hard on that for, 3, 4 years, which took me to like doing the TED Talk and doing all these other things. That project really was a way of giving back to others, and I have seen a lot change. I would say, like, it's now 2023. I see a lot more women out there,
Mhm.
in
Exactly.
in VP positions and all the rest of it, and that seems to be continuing, and it makes me really happy, right? Like, I'm always somebody to clap for other people's success, and especially women, because we are in a male dominated industry. Lots of great men out there who want to support us and who have supported us. But it's nice to see women also putting their hands up and saying, okay, I'm going to put myself out there, or I'm going to go and do that next thing and help. And it just, I think, lifts us all. It lifts us all up, right? When that's happening. for
100%.
sure.
I've seen what you've done with the Magical Unicorn Project. It's amazing. And to your point, I think you've helped elevate a lot of women's confidence to be able to, break those ceilings, right? And be able to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
I know there was a point too where I was very struggling internally, and you and I had a great conversation. And, it helped me put things in perspective that, to your point, your circle can be as big or as small as you want, but make sure the people that are in it are cheering you on every day and are your biggest heroes. And I'm forever grateful for that, for our friendship. But there's so many people in our industry and just people that I've met. When you're able to heal yourself and get yourself into a better position of knowing your worth, it's amazing the people and the family around you that you
Yeah.
establish
Yeah.
because you realize you're
Absolutely.
worth it, right?
Yeah, and women don't do that enough. Women
100%.
don't make enough time for themselves because they're always too busy
Yeah.
giving to everyone else. And kind of culturally, we're also taught that we are the caregivers. That I view, that it's selfish almost to take care of yourself before you're taking care of other people, right? And that has to change. It's completely not selfish to take care of yourself first and invest in yourself. Even this last year or so, after I did my TED talk at the end of 2021. I realized that the next thing I had to do was really just sort of take care of myself because I had been like going around on this hamster wheel for, 20 years. It was like, wow, it's time to get off. And I haven't even really done that much with my project over the last, year or so, but I've given myself permission because it's like, no, that's important. But the most important thing right now is for me to get really good with me so that I can then take myself to that next level and be like really whole and centered and good on the inside. And how many of us really ever spend the time with ourselves or like love ourselves enough to do that, right? And it's so so important. And when you do that, everything shifts around you. It's really, I mean, it's like magic. It is.
And you know what I hear from what you're saying, which is really profound, it's actually making me think right now, is really your messaging in this is that you've learned to even say no to a passion project you have, to
Yeah.
put it right now and kind of put it on the shelf right now
Yeah.
while you work on a better version of yourself, because that's probably even going to come back even stronger, whether you do it next year or the year after, it doesn't matter. It's learning to say no. And how many of us, not just as women, but as just people in general, but women have been given the role of more caregiver. We learn to take care of everyone else, and then we seem to put the oxygen mask on, which is so wrong.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think
Absolutely.
that that's come full circle, right? For yourself. I know for myself, absolutely. But I love what you said, right? Like you've learned to even say no to you.
And I'm a tough customer.
Yeah,
And
exactly, right?
it takes strength to say, I've been, this person for all these years, and but somewhere it's coming from a place of, and to be honest, like just making my dad wrong about me, right? Because I grew up as that black sheep in the family. I grew up feeling like I wasn't good enough and nothing I did was good enough. And so I went out there and was proving all the time. But then at a certain level, it's like, okay, when does this stop? Like, when does all this proving stop? I don't have to do this anymore. Like, I don't have to, make him wrong. Like, I know who I am. I'm good. But I had to really sort of spend some time with myself and rein myself in and face everything I had run from, right, including going back to my hometown, which I did last year. I hadn't been there in like 30 years, right? Like I just faced
Incredible.
all those things that had pained me, and yeah, like really, it was like life changing, and my whole life just sort of changed after I took myself on. My whole life just sort of shifted and changed in so many different directions after that. Like it was something else. Like it's hard to even explain.
I can see, you know what? We're probably even got a podcast just in that alone because how many people do that, right? Take the
Yeah.
time to kind of go back and heal and maybe make peace, right?
Yes, it's
With
absolutely about making peace, right?
it's
Because the
closure
one
for
thing,
yourself, right? It's closure.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little secret because until you learn to really truly love yourself, you will not be able to manifest the life of your dreams. Like
No,
that's so true. Like that's the secret in this. It's you and I've read statistics like along the lines like 90% of people don't love themselves, right? Because we come into this world perfect, but then we get beat up with all these different things and experiences, and we can start to not love ourselves, and that manifests in so many different ways. So, really, to get to where we want to be and have that magical life, as I say, it really takes. really takes loving yourself. And that takes time, especially if you've grown up in a less than perfect environment, which most of us have, right?
Exactly. And I think that there was an expectation, especially when I was growing up, that the conversation of emotion and loving yourself and compassion for yourself just was not there. I mean, you just became a resilient warrior
Yeah.
and put
Yeah.
emotion, kind of box it in and deal with it. And again, it takes a long time to realize there's no one to blame on that. That's just the way society was. But how that's come full circle now, because I know you and I've talked about just how we have conversations with our children and how they're so heart centered, and
Mm.
having more openness as a parent with our children so that they can express emotion and feeling. It's creating a different mindset, and I'm hoping a better way for, when they have family, or maybe just with a partner, or most importantly with themselves, that they're loving themselves sooner than when we
Yes.
found out, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I teach my kids extreme ownership, right?
Yes.
It's not about blaming other people. Like what's ever going on for you in your life, it is happening for a reason. There's something that you are meant to learn from the experience, and just own that. When you aren't owning that, you don't have any power to make anything better, right? And if you don't have compassion for yourself, you can't have compassion for other people, which is why it's so important to learn how to love yourself, because then you're not going to be in this cycle of this happened, that person's wrong, I'm upset. Like none of that is productive. It's like, okay, this happened. What am I meant to learn from this? I have compassion for myself. I have compassion for the person on the other side, and then just become so much better and more empathetic and loving. Right? I think that's really the key.
I listened to a great podcast by Grant Cardone, and he was talking about money. And he said, you have to learn to forgive yourself for what you don't know. A lot of
Hmm.
people judge themselves for thinking they should know everything. And that's not just with money, but that's in life. And we have to learn to have forgiveness for what you don't know, but then seek for a direction with people that do know, right? That
Yeah.
are in a loving, compassionate circle, a safe place for you to be able to do that. And there's many ways to be able to do that. So I want to get back to the topic of money, and I'd love to hear from you how you define wealth, given where you're at today, everything you've learned, everything you've gone through. How do you define wealth?
I think wealth is defined. It's actually not for me. It's really not about money. It's I guess maybe it's easy to say that once you get to a certain stage in life, and it's just like okay, like I got what I wanted, but really I think true wealth is about inner peace. I think inner
Love
peace and happiness is
it.
the key to life. And that's what matters to me right now. And I've really shifted as a person in terms of, how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, what I want to do. It's like what brings me, the most joy, what sparks the most joy and happiness in my life. And it starts really becoming small. It really starts coming down to, your closest friends, your family, health and wellness, the spiritual journey, all those sorts of things matter the most to me. And that's wealth and giving back, right? Giving back to others. I posted just last week about getting stranded on the highway with my car, right? I do this little thing, go out with in my pink Porsche with my unicorn, and people say, why do you do that? And I say, why I do that? Because it makes people happy. Like it's that simple. I can park the car with my unicorn, head sticking out of the passenger seat, and sit in front of an ice cream store and eat ice cream and see people walk by, and they're smiling, they're taking pictures. It just makes people happy. And like that's a really simple, small thing. But I mean, I really think wealth is like that's a big piece of it, right? Like what can you do to put a smile on somebody else's face and create higher vibe energy out there in the world? That's wealth.
You know what? I love what you said. And you are such an inspiration of kindness and impact. Because I know, even just on the financial industry, because you and I've spent so much time. I mean, realistically, I think I've known you for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
You have been just that ray of sparkle and unicornness, I'd say. because you do provide kindness, and everyone smiles when they see you because of what you do. And that really is, I think, impact of wealth, right? Because it
Hmm.
is. It's just creating a kinder person out there that might be going through a really tough day, right?
Yeah.
And you're there to be able to provide that sparkle for them. So I do think that's such an amazing gift. Over the years, getting back on financing and the lessons you've learned, do you remember a time where you were given advice that was something that sticks with you, that was probably one of the worst advice that you were given on financing? And then to the opposite of that, what was the actual best advice that you received on financing?
I don't even feel like I had a lot of advice about
Okay.
financing. I feel like I had no some real support or direction or any of that sort of thing. So I sort of had to learn by the school of hard knocks.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I have a really great answer for that, but I mean,
That's
one
okay, because I think you just said it. Like, you weren't given any advice, right? Like, it's
yeah.
just, you kind of just carved your own path.
Yeah. One thing I wish I had known though is I wouldn't have got a financial planner. I mean, I know this sounds terrible, but like
No, but that's a
financial,
great advice. Yeah,
yeah, with
she'll share
financial,
that.
we
Yeah.
taught that financial planners are going to take care of your money and that you're going to get these great returns and all the rest of it. But I actually made way more money investing in real estate. Like I have outperformed. Like I pretty much fired my financial planner, really nice person, but that wasn't giving me the return that I was actually making. And I ended up taking kind of control of all my own wealth and real estate and everything and managing it myself.
But see, that's a great lesson, right? That's a great lesson to share. So thank you, because I think people don't feel like they have the confidence. They may be listening online and learning, like, again, what Warren Buffett's done, which there's a lot of information that he gives that's completely free out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
don't feel like they have the confidence to take the leap. You did that, and you learn from when you didn't do that, and look how successful. And going back to real estate, doesn't matter what market we're in right now. And you've had real estate for a long time. We've seen markets go up and down,
Yep.
but you've still done, when you look at it, from a percentage perspective, you've still done exponentially well on this, more
Hmm.
than any other type of investment out there, because you
Yeah.
invested in real estate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that by far was like the best. Like every single real estate property I bought, it's been, I mean, especially in where I live, right in Vancouver. I bought in California too when they were having their subprime meltdown. Are we allowed to say subprime anymore? But when they with
Right? Yeah.
2008, I mean, real estate was dirt cheap, and the dollar was at par. I think in 2013 or whatever when I bought something in California, right? So there's always opportunities out there, even when it looks like a disaster. There's always opportunities out there, and pull the trigger, baby, go for it.
That's right. Like, you haven't just bought real estate here in Canada, you've bought it elsewhere for you to be able to enjoy recreationally as well, which is amazing, right? Like, it's a property you can enjoy later on in life too, right? For retirement.
Yeah, and I never listen to what people say. Like a lot of people would say, "Oh, and you never make money when you buy, like for example, in Palm Springs, like those are recreational type places. You're never going to make
Yes.
money." Well, that's not true. Like what I mean. When you're buying a place, and that's at the absolute bottom. I've definitely made money on that place, and real estate is a long term hold, right? Hold real
Yes.
estate over the long term. You're going to make money. Look how much things cost in 1970 and look how much things cost now, right? Like if you're in it for the long term, you're going to make money. You just are.
Yeah, it's not a short gain, it's a long
Yeah,
term for real
long
estate.
term
So
gain.
I actually think that's probably one of your most biggest lessons, I think, in this that you're sharing, is realistically taking faith in yourself. Here, I'm
Yeah.
putting words in your mouth, but
No, no, it's true.
taking,
It's
yeah,
true.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's the biggest
yeah.
mistake I made in my life. I was tight in the bud for a long time, and it took me a while to believe in myself and bloom, right?
Mhm.
But eventually, I got there, and I kind of did it out of necessity because I was a single mom. I would not probably be the person I am today had it not been for becoming a mother. Because the things I wasn't willing to do for myself, the chances I wasn't willing to take for myself, I was willing to do it for my son, right? So that was, but you don't have to have a child to do
No.
that, right? It's just that's what was my journey was, and thank God I had him and became a different person, than this scared little person I had been previously, because it made a obviously big difference in my life in terms of how things turned out for me, right? But yeah, believing in yourself is and loving yourself, right? Healing yourself is the most important thing I think, any of us can do.
You're the resilient unicorn, my friend.
And
So
never give up. Never give up. That's another
yeah,
one.
exactly, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So not to put you on the spot on this, and you may not have one, and that's fine.
Okay.
But I ask people, is there a famous quote that you live by or one that you would want to share with the listeners?
I mean, for this conversation, I would say if you settle for less than you deserve, you'll get less than you settled for.
I love that.
I know. I always
So
remember
true,
that.
right?
Yeah. And that's true with everything, including relationships, everything. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
Yeah, that's so great, honestly. Thank you so much for sharing. Like, this has been, I think, it, it resonates so much with me because I know your story, but I
Hmm.
also know your journey. I know how much impact that you've given to our industry. And I'm sure, in your community, and you're truly the magical unicorn. We have a tradition on the podcast where our previous guest will give a question to our new guest.
Oh,
So,
fun.
yes, exactly, right? So, if you had a chance to sit down with anyone, whether they're someone that is alive or someone that has since passed, who would that be?
Michelle Obama.
And why is that?
Because, you have a different kind of struggle in life when
Yeah,
you're not only a woman, but a minority woman. And to come from that and, reach the heights that someone like her has and have the kind heart that someone like her has, I think she's truly one of the most inspirational women out there. I have a quote of hers that sits on my bed stand, and I look at it most days. And yeah, I think she's incredible.
I love that. I love Michelle too. I love her book. I read her book. She definitely has some great messaging in there and such a strong woman, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do I have time to run and get it so I can read it to you? Because it's so good.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, we can
100%.
edit it, right? Like I'll be right back because it's really good. It'll make it better. Don't be afraid. Be focused. Be determined. Be hopeful. Be empowered. Michelle Obama.
I love it.
Isn't that great? So
Yeah,
I
it's so good.
on my bedstand, and especially on harder days, just to keep me in
Yeah,
the right mindset, right? Because mindset is
yeah.
going to be huge in terms of getting to where you want to go in life.
I love that. I'm going to sneak in one more question that I have for
Okay,
you.
sure.
Um, so, why does forgiveness matter to you when it comes to succeeding?
Okay, so forgiveness is a really hard one, but it's so
Mhm.
important because without forgiveness, we're prisoners. We're our own prisoners. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you accept what someone has done to you or the way they've hurt you. It's just giving yourself the freedom to move on from that, right? And
Mhm.
so when we're able to forgive other people and see them through a lens of compassion, then we don't stay stuck, right? We don't stay, a prisoner. Like for many, many years, I was, angry at my dad, but I realized, he did the best he could, right? And me being angry at him was just punishing myself. So Tony Robbins always says if you're going to blame somebody for the bad things they did to you, then you have to blame them for all the good things they did to you too. And that was really powerful. And that was at a Tony Robbins event in Chicago that I
Awesome.
did in 2018. Yes, I was investing in myself. But I
I
thought,
love
wow, that's really good, right? That's really powerful. And so, I forgave my dad. I'm actually very much like him in a lot of ways, but I forgave him for the things that hurt me. And then I celebrated all the things, like the ways, like he's a really, all his really good qualities. And having that peacefulness around it, like freed me so I could move on and so that I'm not stuck. Because when we are stuck in a pattern of not forgiving and blaming other people,
it.
well, now you're pointing a finger, but there's, four pointing back at you. And you can never be free. You can never be peaceful. And you can't be empowered because when you're blaming somebody else, you have no power. You can only have power when you take extreme responsibility, right? Extreme ownership for whatever the situation is, and just own it and say, okay, you know what, this happened and that's okay. I'm going to put a circle around it. I'm going to sprinkle it with pixie dust and bless and release it with love, and I'm going to move on from that. And then, you know what, you're not carrying it with you. You're not carrying those chains on you anymore. And then you can be free. You can be peaceful. Forgiveness is huge.
It's huge. I love what you said. You said it exactly the way I think. And it takes sometimes a lifetime to understand that. I always say you
Yeah.
can love people, but you can love them from a distance. So it
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to be in there every day, but you can still love them compassionately, have forgiveness, but you can love them from a distance.
Yeah.
And to your point, I agree with you on parents. I think everybody has time where they're, not in sync with their parents or think they know something that they feel. But at the end of the day, you don't know what people are thinking. So stop thinking it, right? Until they actually say it to you, you don't know, right? You don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And you could torture yourself on what you think maybe your parents, or if they think they're disappointed, or maybe there's something that they've done. But to your point, they all have a journey. Everybody's got a journey,
Yeah, and I
right?
think that's what needs to be respected. Everybody's on a human journey, and not everybody is at the same place on that human journey.
Yeah.
Like you might be way over here because you've just evolved quicker and faster, but that doesn't mean beat up on somebody that's over here and hasn't got there yet. Just respect the fact that, they're on their human journey. Maybe that doesn't work for you, and that's totally cool. Like, you know what I mean? That's totally cool. Like you say, you can, love them from a distance, right? You don't have to spend your time there if it doesn't work for you, but you don't have to beat them up or blame them, or because it's not actually hurting that person, it's only hurting yourself
Yeah.
and lowering your vibe. And when you have a low vibe, then you're not living a magical life because all the magic happens in the high vibe space.
You definitely have one every day, my friend. So, on that note, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom today. I can't tell you enough how many takeaways and knowledge that these listeners are getting from you. You are successful because you are so heart centered and you give back genuinely because you love and support people. And I'm
Mhm.
forever holding our friendship
Yeah.
as part of my family. So thank you so much for taking the time today. I truly appreciate it, Kyra. I know how busy you are.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Always love you like a sister forever and always.
I love your background. It's just beautiful like
Just
yours.
for you. Got this just for you. It's not the fake one. It's actually fabric. Isn't that
Oh my
fabulous?
God, I love it. You know what? You gave me some ideas, my friend. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Such an enlightening episode on Beyond the Mortgage. So stay tuned for more inspiring stories of insight. Don't forget to follow Kyra on social media at Magical Unicorn. And if I can kindly ask all of our listeners today to follow us on Spotify. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out to me at Tracy Valko. And until next time, my friends, remember, you got this.